Hello, this is Amy Jolly. I'm the head of school at Applewild. Applewild is a day and junior boarding school here in right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. I'm going to say that I've been with the school 6 years, and we're here today to talk about far from home, why choose a residential program, and how to predict who will thrive. It's a topic that is near and dear to our hearts, and I want to introduce Dr. Amanda Packard.
Hi, I'm Dr. Packard. I am the associate head of school at Applewild. I live on campus with my chocolate Labrador and my husband, and I've been at Applewild for 5 years.
So why families choose boarding school? There are several reasons. The first would be that they're seeking a specific educational objective. For example, hey, I want my child to go to college in the United States, or my child needs a more accelerated program, or my child is a wonderful basketball player and we want to find a great program for them. Many families choose it for becoming a global citizen, for the cultural competency that one gets by attending a boarding school. If a student is expected to go on to lead in a global environment, having a boarding school experience is really important for to get ready for that experience. Logistical issues are another key reason. Families sometimes have big jobs. There may be family dynamics of divorce or just really busy family life, and they find boarding schools really supportive of a student's learning. And then it can be for unique or signature programs. So, for example, maybe a student has dyslexia and they need a specialized curriculum, or maybe they enjoy swimming and they want a program that has that. And the last reason that I'll touch upon is family tradition. There are some families that just believe going to boarding school for a year or 4 years or longer is how education is done. And students are encouraged to follow that.
So, as we talk about readiness, one thing we all have to recognize is that being in a boarding school is hard, right? Students come in, they have roommates for the first time, right? Who are not their siblings. They have lots of teachers and lots of adults, and every single boarding school has rules that have to be followed. As we're talking about readiness, we have to realize that really kids have to be ready to deal with something that is hard. So, some common problems solved by boarding schools, right? So people come into a boarding school because a social dynamic at a current school is not going well, right? Kids sometimes come to us who have been bullied or a little quirky. Sometimes they're at a school where the quality or the teaching philosophy is just lacking, right? It's just not enough for what the child needs. Sometimes it's student development, right? They come in because there's an academic problem or there's a learning gap and they want to have that worked out. But sometimes they come in because they're really bright kids and their schools just are not meeting how intelligent they are. They need more challenges, they need more enrichment, they want a broader world. And sometimes we see students who are just addicted to technology in those after school hours, right? They rather be on their computer gaming than doing anything else. And coming into a boarding school is really coming into a way of life that has limited social interactions online and a lot of interactions sort of in person. So there's sports, there's arts, there's music, right? It really gives children a chance to thrive in the after school hours as well.
So
Amy?
how do we assess student readiness? We find that there are six clues that are evidence that are predictive of residential life success. That picture there shows our students here at Applewild in a forensic science class where they were following the clues to solve a murder that we had on campus. But let's talk about the clues for boarding school readiness. The first one is desire. This sounds so obvious, but does the student want to go to boarding school and what reasons do they give? The second clue is independence. And this is really important. Has the student actually spent time away from home and parents? Have they gone on a sleepover, gone to a sleepaway summer camp, even maybe spent a weekend with a family member in another city? Have they traveled internationally? Have they had to manage their time without an adult telling them explicitly what to do every minute? Do they have their own bedroom and take care of it? Are they independent in that way? And then a nuance on this is, do they trust and respect adults? It's important in a boarding school when you have so much independence as a student that you be able to communicate and interact with adults as well to advocate for yourself.
And we've seen as a junior boarding school is that, there are 9-year-olds who have a ton of independence, right? Sometimes more than a 15-year-old, right?
Right.
They're ready to go away. They're excited. They trust adults. They've been to sleepaway camp and they are really excited by the adventure that a boarding school can bring. So I would say independence isn't really limited by age. It's really sort of limited by opportunities. So give your child an opportunity to be independent and really, praise them for their independence. So then we want to talk a little bit about self-care, right? It's really important that kids, when before they go to boarding school, have the ability to do a little bit of self-care. So, can a child pick out their own clothes in the morning? Do they know how to shower without prompting? And I'll tell you that at our school, we still prompt. I don't know a boarding school that doesn't prompt the boys after a sports game to go take a shower. So
Take a shower.
yeah, I'm not saying this has to be perfect, but it's always good when a child knows to go do that. Can they trim their fingernails and toenails? Can they wash and style their own hair? Do they have any strategies for de-stressing, right? So, I have some kids who, like to read a book when they're stressed out, and I have some kids who like to go kick a soccer ball, and I have some kids who like to call home to their parents, right? So it really depends upon the child. Are they able to show or report feeling ill or any concerns they may be having? It's really important that with that self-care is that if they start to feel a little sniffly, that they see the school nurse, that they tell a dorm parent so the dorm parent knows to sort of keep an eye on what's going on. And then, of course, we always teach this. This is like a lifelong lesson. Like, how do you advocate for yourself? Making sure that they are willing to speak up and talk about how they're feeling and what they're feeling.
The other clue is responsibility. So ask yourself, what has my student been responsible for? Do they have chores at home? Is it their job to help clean up after dinner? Are they able to wake up on their own in the morning? Are they responsible for themselves, sort of generally in that way? When they're going out to eat or they're at a meal, are they able to choose a balanced meal? I mean, not all the time. I mean, all of us make poor choices sometimes, but are they generally able to say, huh, I need to have something green on my plate? Um, and then lastly, are they able to follow directions? Because it's important for a student to be kept safe, to be able to listen to directions from the adults around them and to go ahead and follow those. We care a lot about our students, so that last one is pretty important.
And I'll just say that at Apple and at most boarding schools, the more responsible that both they are, right? And that sort of comes also a little bit with age and a little bit with practice. They get to take on leadership responsibilities and then they become responsible for others. So it really is, it's a growth curve. They're always learning a little more. So then let's talk about resiliency, right? We really need kids who are resilient because they are going to face challenges going to boarding school. That is just part of life. But sort of an interesting fact is children who go to boarding school are more prepared to face the challenges of college and university. And they see that they have sort of less issues when they get to the university and do better academically. So I think boarding school, it's a really good sort of precursor for going off into college. So for our kids and for your children, you want to make sure that you talk to them, right? Can they name something that was difficult that they've experienced? Can they sort of talk that through with you? We want to talk to kids about, can you tell me a time when they've faced an obstacle and what they've done? Can you tell me a time when it was hard to be a friend or have a friend? Right. And as we're asking kids those questions, those are all questions that parents can be asking kids around the dining room table at night or when they see them, because we really want to help model for them that, yeah, that was hard and they did a great job. Because resiliency is really built by believing that you've been resilient, right? So the more that you believe that you're resilient, the more resilient you become. And you want to make sure that you allow your children to solve some of their own problems. As a parent, the first thing we want to do is solve everything for a child, like totally natural. But it's really important that we look at a kid and we say, okay, how would you handle that? Or walk me through the steps of what you would do. And that's how you're going to build resiliency.
Last clue we look for is community mindedness. The ages that go to boarding school, fourth grade through high school, It's sort of a self-centered time in life where students understand lots of the world revolves around them. But to be part of a community, to be part of a residential school community, they have to see themselves as a member of the community. So that can be, thought about in terms of, has a student been on a sports team and had to think about, gosh, how do I support my teammates so that we can score? Maybe it's part of a church or part of a community group. Have they volunteered or done any community service? These are things that help them think about what it means to be community minded. We can also just share exemplars. Sometimes we might talk about the family member that came over and helped us put in a garden and how we, as a family, now enjoy fresh herbs for dinner. Or we can talk about Bill Gates, who gave away his fortune to solve illnesses around the world. That's a really big example of community mindedness on a big scale. And I think just talking about those things with students help them see themselves as I'm an important member. I matter. I matter in my community and I want to contribute.
So here's the good news is though that list seems exhaustive, readiness can be learned, right? We do not expect every child who comes to us to have everything that we just listed, right? Very rarely do we see that. So we want to make sure that you understand that schools will help your child with these things, but when parents say to us, what can I do to help my child get ready for boarding school? Those are really some things that you can work on with your child. Right. So, above all, your child can learn how to be successful navigating the world at a boarding school.
So let's talk about how do you build desire to go to boarding school? Maybe parents think this is a good idea, and the kid's maybe a little shaky on the idea. Encourage your child to talk to students who've been successful at boarding school. So that can be the schools can help arrange for a conversation between a currently enrolled student and a prospective student. We definitely encourage you to go and tour and see schools from an early age, just talk about it. We offer residential summer camp here at Applewell, and the primary reason we do that is to give experience to other students on becoming interested in boarding school. The next thing we should talk about is how do you build independence?
So, when you're building independence, right, we want to scaffold small tasks first, right? So, with kids, you start small and you grow bigger. So, are they picking out their outfits? Can they travel short distances alone, right? Are they able to keep a budget? If you give your kid $20, can they come home and tell you what they spent it on and give you the change? Are there chores at home that they could be doing so that they feel like they are independently, supporting the family as well? Um, it's really important that you're explicit and clear about what independence looks like within your own home because different families will feel different things about independence. And you want to make sure that you catch your child doing something good, right? So it's always instead of catching the negative, make sure you're catching the positive. And again, to be independent, you need to start to solve some of the problems on their own. So, you know, talking with your child about how do you think you should handle that situation. Sometimes it's even helpful to share with your child a problem that you're having at work or with a friend and ask them how they think they should handle it because they love giving advice because they think and they believe what they're saying really matters, and if you take it to heart, they're going to feel that they have something really worthwhile to contribute. And you kind of remind children that they have your trust, right? That you have to be able to trust your child. That's a big part of going off to boarding school, and the child needs to believe the trust is there.
So building on self-care. Really, this is about modeling self-care yourself as the adult in your child's life. Be explicit about saying, "Oh, I had a hard day at work today. I'm going to go take a walk to relax. Oh, I'm feeling a little tired. I think I'll go to bed early tonight, just so I wake up refreshed tomorrow." And then give supportive techniques to a student to develop self-care. So that might be checklists, like, oh, things I need to do before I go to bed, and give them opportunities to practice. This is a learning curve for all students. It takes years and years for them to learn good self-care. And I know as adults, when my friends and I talk, we're all still working on our self-care. So it's a continuum for sure. But talking about these things ahead of time before you go to boarding school can lead to an easier adjustment.
So, how do you build responsibility? You want to make sure that you give ownership over something that is meaningful to your child, right? So, if they really like a dog and they're walking the dog, right? That's showing responsibility. Like, give them opportunities in areas first that they are really excited about. Talk about what responsibility looks like in your community. If they have a sibling or, another parent or an aunt or an uncle who's doing something that looks really responsible, like point it out, call it out. And really discuss why responsibilities matter, right? You have to tie it back to the family values, and make sure that they sort of understand why it's important to be responsible. Again, as responsibility grows at boarding school, so does the leadership opportunity. So understanding how that ties in is really important. You want your child to feel like they have their own expertise. So one of the ways they can really feel responsible is when they're teaching something to a younger child, right? Or helping a younger child, whether that's on the playground or learning a math fact or reading to another child. It can be really help a child feel responsible.
For building resilience, this is one of my favorites. It's definitely a metacognitive practice. And when I say metacognitive, it means like how you drive this supercomputer that's between your ears. It's understanding that as a child, I see my own struggles and I think I'm the only one with those struggles. And the reality is, it's like around you are people, lots of examples of people struggling with things. And I think, it's important for them to understand that um, life is full of opportunities to overcome small challenges. So when we're experiencing a challenge, we want to take a pause and we want to reflect on where we are and reflect on what it takes, what are the next steps. And I think that's how children learn resilience. And it's not that things are perfect even when we encounter a problem. Sometimes, sometimes we lose a game. Sometimes we forget our backpack and we lose it permanently. Sometimes, we disappoint a friend. And these are hard things to come back from. But when we're resilient, we are able to give it another shot and, pick ourselves back up, dust ourselves off, and move forward.
Can I just sort of add to when we really see this is around grades, right?
Mm,
Student who expects to get all A's and then doesn't get an A and then sort of falls apart because they don't have an A and they either argue it and think that it's the teacher. That's not really being resilient, right? We're trying to learn from our mistakes. So it's really important that children know they're going to make mistakes. Like, that's okay. It's okay to have a B on something. That's just going to help you strive for wanting the A on the next one. But no one is going to go through life getting all A's.
thanks, Tosh.
And if you do, you're probably not at the right school because you're probably not being challenged enough, right? So we want to make sure children are challenged as well.
We need to pause on this one. This is a really, really big one because of these things. Students are gaming, they're playing, electronic games. If they don't like how something is going, they just hit stop and start over. And so they're not getting enough practice in real life these days about true resilient skills. It's one of the reasons that many boarding schools have limits on technology for students. For example, at Applewild, no student walks around with a cell phone because we deal with middle school students at our school, and we know that it's a very awkward developmental time. And for them to develop the appropriate life skills they need for long-term success, resilience being a key one of them, we make sure that they have lots of time to practice those skills without the interference of technology.
So next is how would you build community mindedness, right? You want to make sure that the child has an opportunity to explore outside of school and the family. So this is great where maybe they're in an outside sports league, maybe they're with a church. Maybe they're doing something just for their community, for their block, right? For their apartment complex, whatever it might be. You want to show them examples or where people have made a difference in the world, right? You want to show them people being community minded. You want to make sure that you model and value how to work with and for others, right? So again, we're trying to teach children that we care a lot about them, but we want them to care about everyone within our community. At Applewild, we have something called the Joy Club, and the Joy Club really is just a club where all the kids get together and they try and figure out ways to use their community mindedness to spread joy around campus. And that is sometimes like telling jokes to the second graders or, bringing a surprise snack to the kindergartners. It's just about spreading joy, and that's sort of an example of community mindedness at our school. You really want to find a societal issue that your child cares about. So whether it's save the whales or, feeding the homeless or whatever it is, you want to make sure that they are having opportunities that sort of resonate with them. A great way to do this is, a lot of kids sort of outgrow their clothes or they outgrow their sports equipment. And a great way for them to start is just, being able to give those things away to people in need or who have more need than they do. So, Amy.
So when you get to boarding school, we find that for many students, things will go well for a while. In fact, Amanda, you had the example of two kinds of students, right? The ones that go well for the first 3 weeks and then hit a bump at about 3 weeks in. And then those that arrive and sort of have immediate homesickness that they need to work through. I mean, the good news here is like they all work through it, and everyone settles in and adjusts. And what we encourage for our families is we say, don't interview for pain when you talk to your student on the phone. And what do I mean by interviewing for pain? I mean, as a parent, you can't help yourself. And I know this because I've sent two of my children to boarding school as well. You want to know, are you eating? Have you made friends? Are you getting along well with your teachers? And often it's like, Mom, I've only been here for 2 weeks. It's not fair to ask those questions. So sometimes parents will actually ask questions that make a student feel like, well, gosh, maybe things aren't going well, huh? So it's important to ask about the positives. So tell me some things that went great in your day today. Tell me about a friend that you're really enjoying. Tell me about something that you overcame. Gosh, I know there are things that must be hard. You can tell me about that. Give your child the opportunity to show how well they're doing. And through your verbal cues, communicate to them that you believe in them, that you trust the school, and that you know that they're going to be okay.
So something that you should always know is that schools are there to offer support, right? So if you do find that you're talking to your child all the time and that you find that there's like something going on that is just troubling to you, like they're not getting along with a roommate, there's a roommate situation that,
Or it's a reoccurring theme, something that
yeah.
keeps coming up.
So you want to make sure that you actually communicate with the schools. You want to make sure that you communicate with the educational consultants because they're there to help you as well, right? So there are a lot of people who want to help your child be successful. Schools often help connect a child to the community because kids who are connected to the community actually do better in the community, right? So schools can help by finding an activity the child loves to do and playing games with them and making sure that the hours before bed are filled. They can connect them with a buddy. Sometimes, as a junior boarding school, we've seen kids who sort of melt down in the evenings. It's that final half hour of every night. We've changed bedtimes to put them to bed a half an hour earlier, and we've ended up with less issues for some of our younger kids who are like 8. Sometimes, they haven't been getting a good night's sleep, right? And, if they're hungry or they're tired or they're getting sick, which is the other one, right? Those are when we see children melting down. And then sometimes schools will reduce workload for a time period, right? If a child is coming down with the flu, the last thing you want to do is try and get in those final papers in, right? Like you want to make sure that the school is understanding and can support kids all the time because that's what we do. Like we want to see your child be successful at school. But there are also things that parents can do. So one of the ways that parents can help is they can sometimes reduce that time online or talking to home. Because what we find is that some parents, with the best intentions, will tell their child everything that they're missing from home. So it's every single story about everything their sister or their brother got to do, but they didn't get to do because they were at boarding school. And so what ends up happening is that the child can sometimes be upset by hearing all the things they're missing out on. So really make sure that those conversations with your child are centered around what your child's doing at boarding school as opposed to all the fun things at home that they're missing, because that can really sort of sway things. And we know about homesickness is that children really need to have a good break from home to actually help homesickness go away. So it doesn't do to talk to your child every single day. That actually increases homesickness as opposed to decreasing it. When you do talk to your child, believe in them, right? Catch them doing something good. Tell them that you know that they can be successful. Like the most important thing is to let a child know that you believe in them. Like you know they can be a success at this. Um, this is really hard. You have to hide your own apprehension. I know a lot of parents who are homesick for their child. Sometimes parents are more homesick for their child than children are homesick for their home. We really want to make sure that if a parent is apprehensive, they're not sharing that with their children because kids will pick up on that and then they become apprehensive. Um, if you are nervous, like reach out to the school. They'll talk to you and let you know how your child's doing. Talk to the educational consultant. They'll tell you how your child's doing, sort of what's normative, right? Like what is just, the first time you send your child away to boarding school, there are going to be emotions that come up, right? Sometimes your child might need to talk with a school counselor too, right? Just to sort of have somebody who can listen to them who's not their teacher and not their parent. So there's some ways that you can support your child when they're struggling.
So I'd build on that for just a quick minute and say, when I sent my children to boarding school, I was worried that maybe my parenting days were over, that, the school was going to do all that. And that's just not true. I had a good friend that said, "Oh, Amy, that's wrong. Actually, they're your children, even when they're at boarding school until they go to college. And then when they go to college, it's really the peer group, that's educating them there. And until that time, you really are the person that is still providing that guidance and love. And when they're at boarding school, it's from a little bit further, but with technology and frankly, all the breaks that we have a number of times during the year, it feels more like a child's going to camp than the finality of a child going on to college or moving into their own apartment or whatever. So there's a very different feel. And so I just want to share that as like one mom to moms that might watch this, that the boarding school feel, especially with technology these days, is you're not disconnected from your child and you are still providing that parenting and that loving guidance. And the good news as a parent is now you have all these people at the boarding school who are supporting you in that effort. And so it's really a team of people that are helping this child grow up and reach their fullest potential. And with that in mind, like some people wonder, gosh, when is the best time to go to boarding school? So we're a junior boarding school. So like we take children as young as 9 years old in the fourth grade, which is undoubtedly young. And we have a different program for those very young boarders. So we read them bedtime stories. We hold birthday parties for them because they are so young. But they're very happy and successful. And I'll share that. And there's a long tradition of boarding around the world, even starting at younger than fourth grade. Common entry points, though, for boarding schools are really at sixth grade and above. So often students will come in middle school for a couple of years to get ready for boarding secondary school, or come into secondary school with the idea of getting ready for college. Um, you know, for our students, one of the common profiles that we see of students coming into our junior boarding school is just kids that went to summer camp, thought it was awesome, valued those close connections with their camp counselors, and wanted connections like that with teachers. So they wanted to go to boarding school. So that's all I'll say on that, except there are many benefits to boarding school. And I would lead with the just academic excellence. This is what we do. There is nothing better than a 7 by 24 immersive academic experience. Students are not wasting time commuting. They are not wasting time doing things that are not supportive of their overall growth. The supervision and structure that we're able to provide in a boarding school is just super wholesome. So I mentioned before about technology. Our kids are eating 3 healthy meals a day. They're getting good sleep. They're exercising every day. And they're living in a community where most of the faculty and staff live on campus. So they're joking with their dorm parents as they walk down to breakfast about what's going to happen that day. And it's just this all in feeling where we're all in it together. Um, at Applewild, because we are an enclosed community, we are preserving influences that would limit a child's childhood. So lots of negative outside influences just don't make it to our campus. So our kids get to be kids for just as long as possible. And we think there's a real value in that. The fresh air running around our green fields, the forests here, it's just a very healthy way to be. And within our community, we pull students from around the world, and I know most boarding schools do as well. So they have the opportunity to be in this vibrant, multicultural, global community. I'll reflect as a parent for a second. My adult children now have friends around the world that they will know for the rest of their lives. The groomsmen and maids of honor that will come to their weddings live, in far-flung countries, and it's that global network that they get that's incredibly powerful. Um, and I think, we also, in terms of a community, have what I like to call a sort of a vast conspiracy of non-optionality. And most boarding schools require you to do sports. They require you to do arts. So you get to do all of those things. You get to do public speaking. So, with that in mind, I'd really like to invite you to come visit our boarding school and the boarding schools around us in our area. It's the best boarding schools in the United States are within an hour of Applewild. And we believe in partnerships with our parents. It's a very close relationship. We speak frequently with our parents and communicate, so you know what's happening. The location is we're an hour from Boston's Logan Airport, so you can land in the airport, pick up your bags, and be on our campus within an hour. We pick up the students at the airport within specific windows. And then we also take them to the airport for breaks, and we wait. We actually go through security with them, and we make sure they get on the plane, and we actually wait there until the plane is in the air to make sure they are safely launched. When they arrive in the United States, all of our students are given a phone number of our administrator on duty phone, which typically Dr. Packard is holding during this window of time. So if for some reason they are flagged going through customs or immigration, the student is instructed to call that number and hand the phone to the immigration officer. And Amanda is fabulous at schooling them on the facts that these students have their visa and that we are waiting for them just outside that door and that they need to move it along. So it happens very rarely, but Amanda is our secret
It
weapon for that.
does happen every once in a while, but, you know, but I will say we've had great success at getting them through. And I think really, everyone wants to see the safety of a child, right? So,
Yes.
I think that it is a very, very safe to come through. Um, and I just want to add a little bit more about the junior boarding school experience, right? Because these are younger kids, right? We need to be a specialized program, and we take such good care of these younger students as they're coming in. We have really small classes. Most junior boarding schools do. Students are free to sort of grow within the community, right? We know that this is an age of growth. Again, like these kids will make mistakes. We know they're going to make mistakes. Whether it's dropping their lunch tray because they got distracted by something, which literally happens, or they kick a soccer ball through a window and break it, which literally happens, right? We understand that these are not, intentional endeavors to hurt the community. These are just things that, we sort of expect with the age, and we talk about responsibility and not kicking in the direction of the school windows. And they change where they kick the ball. So I think that again, being in a junior boarding school just allows them an opportunity to make mistakes. It also really prepares them for boarding school life at the secondary level, which prepares them for college. You know, for us, we are really sort of experts on early adolescence, right through ninth grade, and that is such a pivotal time. It's really when you learn how to believe in yourself as a student. And if you believe in yourself as a student, you will do better than if you don't believe in yourself as a student. So we want to be very encouraging and help students know that they really are capable human beings.
We also preserve childhood in a degree that I think is different. So the oldest student on our campus is 15. So, when families send their children to us, there is never a time where we will have a 13-year-old girl and a 18-year-old boy on the same campus. So our children really are children. So there's no teenage influences on them, encouraging them to act older or to, grow up faster. They really can focus on themselves and their own development, developing those, great friendship skills, academic skills, sportsmanship, arts, finding out what they love. And then when they go off to secondary school, gosh, they're ready for that experience. So, the advice we would give parents is, you know your child. You are the primary educator as the parent. So do a little bit of research. Don't just look at the ratings and say, oh, that has to be the best school. There are many, many schools out there, and we all do something a little bit different. And I'll have to say, sometimes we're not so good about putting it on our website. So it's really just best to go and look for yourself when at all possible. And consultants are a fabulous way to learn more about schools too. They may have experience of having placed children in those schools, or and they have a track record there of knowing like how things went and what the school was good at. So that's a real asset if you have a good consultant to work with. The reality is that high quality schools like Applewild, the first thing we're going to do is put your child's interest first. So whenever anything happens, we're going to take care of your kid. That's our job, and it's a very sacred responsibility that we prioritize over all else. And Amanda and I, we watch over these kids. We have dinner with them. I come in and have breakfast with them most mornings. That's my dog Rosemary there on the slide that you see. We raised Rosemary on campus. Um, and we'll come in and have breakfast together, and it's a great way to lay eyes on all the kids and see how they're doing, and who's having a good day, who maybe is not having a good day. And then we want to help them sort of through that. So I think, find a school that you can trust, that you believe in, and then go ahead and trust them. No school is perfect, just like no child is perfect. And the thing is, can we work together for a wonderful outcome for your child? Because that's what we're all about. So thank you so much for this opportunity. If you'd like to learn more about Applewild or talk broadly about boarding school, both Amanda and I are here to offer ourselves as a resource. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I am hoping that you're picking up the sounds of joyful children running around this beautiful campus. Applewild today is a vibrant, multicultural, global, dynamic place. I think our sense of community is first and foremost. The ideas you have about yourself and how you feel your responsibility to the community is. And what we see at Applewild is that's where the core values really shine. Children are known here and they're valued. There's a genuine concern for the individual, and because they matter, I think that heartens them to bring their best selves to the work. It's scary to try new things, especially at the ages we serve. So children do need to feel emotionally safe, and Applewild's really always done that. I think it's the privilege of watching these little humans develop during the most explosive time of their growth. Our students leave us with the skills and the desire to make whatever world they join to be a better place. And that's because of the core values and the education they received here on the Hill.